Good morning, everyone. Chris here with Inspired Energy, joining me again this morning. Hartwell. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, everyone.
Yes, so we're continuing our exploration of the line numbers. So we have the lines of the I Ching. We're doing line 2 today. So maybe you can give us a little recap about what line 2 is and explain what we're looking at today.
Yeah. Well, of course, we think when we're looking at the lines, we're visualize them as bottom up. So the first line is at the bottom, the foundation, and we talked about that last week. And in our metaphor of the house, the one is the foundation, and the two is the windows on the first floor. And
Mm-hmm.
imagine it's dusk or something, and there's light, and you can see what's going on in the house because the draperies haven't been drawn, and somebody's doing their own thing. Maybe they're dancing, maybe they're playing the piano, and they're just lost in their own little world, and they're doing things that call your attention because it's so attractive. It's got that something to it. That's kind of how the second line is. The second line is called the hermit line. So, and the hermit just likes to do its own thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in our house metaphor, it's those first windows. And the thing about the hermit is they like to do their own thing, but at a certain point in their lives, people are drawn to and admire what they've developed because there's a sense of naturalness to this second line.
Mm-hmm.
It can be associated with genius, ease, naturalness.
Mm-hmm.
And so your attention is drawn to them because they do amazing things. And they're meant to be called out because there is part of the second line which does enjoy giving their gifts, even to those people, publicly.
Mm-hmm.
So they get recognized for the gift, and if it's the right recognition, then they are able to give that gift to the world. And so one of the primary profile types with the two is the 2-4 profile.
Mm-hmm.
Being called out and then giving your gifts to the world. Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense?
Yep.
Now, they don't really like attention though. It's like, okay, I'm glad you like the art that I produced or the music I produced or whatever it is, but they're not attention seekers.
Mm-hmm.
They'd really rather you didn't ask them about stuff, because there can be a shyness to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you ask them, "Oh my God, how did you create this piece of art? It's so amazing."
Mm-hmm.
And they don't like those questions. They don't like because they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
When you have that element of genius, you don't know.
It just comes naturally.
It just comes naturally, and you can't point to what you've done or what you've thought or
Mm-hmm.
the process that you've gone through most of the time. It
Mm-hmm.
just happens in a pretty unconsciously competent way.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, so hermits are often got this feeling of there's often a democratic flavor to the second line.
Mm-hmm.
Why democratic? Because it's like, yeah, you know what? You do your own thing. Leave me alone. Let me do my own thing, and I'm going to let you do your own thing. And so there's this kind of democratic sort of flavor to them. They're not interferers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, yeah, they don't often even want to talk about how they've done what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know,
I like
they,
I like the one where you say they don't like to study.
yeah,
Yeah, because they just know why. Like why study? Like it just
right.
comes to them.
It's like probably. Probably part of their genius is innate, and part of it's simply a reflection of being absorbed in the activity. So
Mm-hmm.
it's the energy, the naturalness of the two is not the product of study, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one. The one does all the studying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it can make them nervous about the expectation of others, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they don't like to be questioned. Oh, how did you do that? What's your process?
Mm-hmm.
It would be interesting to notice, often famous people are being interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be interesting to notice, the people that are kind of the reluctant interviewees. They're probably hermit types.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, because they don't like trying to explain how they did things or why they do things because they just don't know. Yeah, it makes sense.
yeah, and when it comes to the call, of course, like everything
Mm-hmm.
in human design, it's like it if what decides whether the call is right or not is not the mind, it's the system, it's your
Mm-hmm.
decision making strategy.
Right.
So there are hermits, that respond to the wrong call, and that can be a real problem. It
Mm-hmm.
can create a lot of pain for them if they, oh, I guess I'm being called out, okay, but if it's not right for them, then it won't feel good. It won't
Mm-hmm.
feel,
That makes sense. Or
yeah,
something will happen. Yeah, to try and bring them back into alignment.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the two is kind of that kind of. I lived with a guy who was a two once, um, and he was athletic. He had this sense of self-possessiveness about him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so he was good at yoga. He was very self-possessed. He was very much into gourmet raw food. And
Mm-hmm.
there were a lot of things that he did very quietly and competently and naturally. And he had this aura of containment about him. And, he was a hermit. And it's like I
Mm-hmm.
think of him when I think of the hermit line.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the twos just want to be harmonious. They just want to get along with people. They kind of have that, as I said, I'll leave you alone, you leave me alone. I'll do my thing that you've called me out to do because I love doing it anyway. So great.
Mm-hmm.
So, but otherwise they're not attention seekers.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really explored this, but it would be interesting to kind of see if I could find correlations between introversion and extroversion in some of these lines.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if the two, people with a strong, and I mean, it's going to be for those of you who are listening, all of it, likely most of us have at least a couple of second lines. But if it's in your profile, that energy is more pronounced, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But it does operate, there is a sense of it operating um, below the surface, even if your primary profile is different.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're either very shy or they can be very bold in terms of their connecting the style with which they connect to people. Um, the way they establish security is through nourishment, through nurturing things,
Mm-hmm.
and if they can get very depleted. And these stronger, the strongest characteristics of the two are going to be felt with those of you who have profiles that have two as part of it. So that would be a 2-4 or a 5, a 6-2, 5-2. Those are the profiles with the second line prominent in them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Emotional approach, they would tend to withdraw. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they would either advance and be fine, or they would withdraw. Um, so those are some of the qualities there of the
Mm-hmm.
two.
Yeah. So, what kinds of things would a two be good at? Like, like in the average workaday world, like.
Hmm.
More like a creative type, or would they be, like they don't seem like they would be like a worker or generator type person much.
Well, I mean, often when we think of talented, we think of people, who are visibly talented or
Hmm.
artistically talented, because those people get extra attention in our society. But
Hmm.
there are people who are talented as lawyers and talented as accountants and talented as service people,
Carpenters and yeah, okay. Yeah.
as carpenters. And it's just like, well, they do things with, they do things naturally, easily, efficiently, with a kind of a grace and a kind of ease that just like,
Hmm.
wow, that seems to come so naturally to you. And
Hmm.
so that energy could, it could be expressed through any of the 64 gene keys.
Right.
The second line just has that energy. I
Hmm.
mean, we can look at ourselves as examples.
Hmm.
Um,
I don't have very many twos.
um, Well, the 19, for instance, I have the 19 in the second line.
Hmm.
And the 19 is the gift of sensitivity. Um, and it is one of my defined channels. And it's like there are certain things that I recognize going through the world. And it's just it feels like it's a default awareness of people that is not the same as everybody else's. And so I didn't work to get it. I can't say, oh, I did this, this, and this, and this, and this is why I'm so sensitive.
Hmm.
I was born that way. To use the
Hmm.
Lady Gaga song or something.
Hmm.
The second line is, I was born that way.
Hmm.
Is kind of the thing. I mean, you have the gate of resolve, which is what you have 4 or 5 activations of that, don't you, Chris?
Yeah, I have four.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So what's interesting as I look at your second lines is you have the defined channel of community,
Hmm.
and both of the gates, both gate 37, the gate of friendship, and the gate 40, the gate of aloneness, are in the
Hmm.
second line.
Hmm.
So what that would suggest, I mean, do you have any thoughts about that? I have my thoughts about
I do not have thoughts about it because it just comes naturally to me.
it.
Whatever it is, I don't think about it. It just happens. So I think that that's my
Well,
answer.
I think you have a real grace and naturalness about um, your desire to be of service and connected through community.
Hmm.
And it's probably, as I say, nothing you've ever thought about. I can remember you telling me things about your relationship with a family member
Hmm.
and how, there was a sense of his envying you. And I mean, maybe it's related to your ease around community and being in social patterns, right?
Maybe, but I just
I mean,
I
sometimes I
yeah.
think when people recognize or sense the two in people, they develop a sort of envy about it.
Mm,
Oh, why are you so good at that? Or why does that come so easily? It can irritate other
yeah.
people.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. That I've experienced.
Yeah. So I mean, that might be related to the twos in those lines
Hmm.
for you.
Hmm.
Um, Mindfulness, I have the gate 33, which is the gate of mindfulness in the two. And
Hmm.
that's one of my north nodes. And so it's kind of the path that I'm walking, moving forward on.
Hmm.
And being reflective about my experience has always been very natural to me.
Hmm.
It's like when I look at other people, it's like it's like they don't seem to do that. And I'm thinking, why is it they don't do that?
Hmm.
And I mean, that quality in me, I think, was pointed out right from the beginning by teachers that I had.
Mm-hmm.
They would, it's like, oh, this is a reflective kid, and it just came naturally.
Mm-hmm. Which is probably why you do what you do, right? And you study all the systems so that you can reflect on who you are and how you are in the world.
Well, in our ongoing, work with our own mentor, you and I share a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she's often saying that people are blind to their gifts often,
Mm-hmm.
right? What if it comes naturally to you, you take it for granted. You don't even think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I have a lot of first line, so I have a lot of insecurity, and I have to do it. I've done a lot of research.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the things that maybe other people would appreciate about me most are the things that are my second lines.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. So your second line might be an area in your life where you're unconscious about your own value. So it's
Mm-hmm.
useful to think of it that way too.
Yep. So, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up today about the line two?
No, I think I'm complete with that.
Yeah, they're pretty. It seems like it's like, okay, that's it. I do my thing and you leave me alone. Kind of like the whole two line. So just you started your course last night.
Yes, we began a course in an experiential, claiming the gift of your true self, and that's pretty exciting. If there are people who are excited about it who wanted to join in, even though we've already begun one, they probably still could. But the exciting thing is that, probably sometime in November, or we haven't pinned down the exact dates, is if you missed and it wasn't in the flow for you to start at this time, you can subscribe to it after the fact,
Yeah,
and
and
it
do
will
the
be available
replays for the ones that you
electronic.
missed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. All right. Well, just a reminder again, the things that come naturally to you are available here at Clair-i-tea. Doing your human design readings, and if people have their charts, want to dive deeper, or you want to go into astrology or anything else, you can call us here at 587-596-3333 and book an appointment. And human design is such a huge system that it doesn't take long. Leah's asking where we can find information about your course. So the course was on the Eventbrite and on Facebook. So if you go there to past events, it should be there. If not, you can email us here at clairity7@gmail.com and we'll send the information to you, Leah. All right. So with that, we'll say God bless. And we'll see you guys next Wednesday at 9, where we'll continue with line 3. Bye now.
Bye bye.